We could be excused for wondering if Jesus was having himself a bad day when he taught this morning's parable. Christ was unusually critical and tough. We can find ourselves feeling sorry for the third servant. Talk about being caught. But there was a lot of cash in the stash. 1,000 gold coins back then was equal to the wages of a day laborer for 15 years. In today's economy, it would be about $250,000. But even if the third guy didn't belong on Wall Street, how bad did he really do? He didn't lose anything. He made no mistakes. He was able to dig up the same dollars he'd been given. So what was the big problem? The third servant was punished for failing to try. If he had bargained with the best brokers he could find, if he had seriously meditated on the market and lost his shirt, the boss wouldn't have been as upset. At least he would have tried. But he took the boss's belief in him and buried it. The text tells us that each servant had been given an amount in keeping with their ability. The master took care not to put them in over their heads. But the third treasurer took his treasure and entombed it. He annihilated any accumulation of his assets. He interred any hope of interest. And so for not trying, he was severely punished. The man was satisfied with not doing anything wrong. He didn't care that he had not done anything right. He had played not to lose. He did not play to win. And why wouldn't he try? Well, he tells us, I was afraid. He was afraid to try, so he buried his treasure. He was afraid, so he canceled the confidence that the boss had in him. He failed to have faith in himself. The other two investors saw possibilities for what they had. They thought their plans had potential. I think they probably felt some fear also, but not enough to make them dig a ditch for their dough. The British biblical scholar William Barclay tells us that the third servant is meant to stand for the scribes and Pharisees, the religious authorities of that day with whom Christ had an ongoing battle and who eventually orchestrated his execution. Their whole attitude toward God's law was to reduce the love of God to a multitude of rules and ceremonies and to make sure they never, ever changed. Any change, any development, any alteration, anything new was to them anathema. They stood for the paralysis of religious truth. The spirit of the law was sacrificed to the letter of the law. They were safe, predictable, unchanging, and dead. They lived to avoid making mistakes. They were sworn to not do anything wrong. They cared not at all to do anything right. Their team played not to lose, rather than to win the love of God for people. What are the lessons here? And why is Jesus so demanding about them? Our fears don't always deserve sympathy and tolerance. Usually, yes, I think, but not always. We don't have the right to destroy someone else's life. We don't have the right to destroy our own possibilities either. Faith in God that doesn't lead to faith in ourselves is fictitious, phony faith. If others belittled us the way we sometimes do, we'd be indignant. We'd say, "Who are you to talk to me that way?" Who gave us the right to undermine ourselves the way we sometimes do? We want to believe, we want to make a difference, but we're intimidated because we focus on our faults too much instead of our faith. We know at times we can be petty, mean-spirited, small-minded. We know how far we can fall from who we think we should be, who we want to be. If we do it long enough, the hole we dig, along with that third servant, becomes a grave for our hopes, our lives. There is something to be said for getting upset with ourselves every once in a while, for confronting ourselves over how we cripple our hopes, how we dash our dreams. If the third servant had stopped in the midst of digging that hole and read himself the riot act, his master wouldn't have had to. When we grip that shovel, what are we burying? What vital value is going in the hole when the handle is in our hands? The spirit of today's text is well captured in the following reading. Someone once emailed to me, and we'll end with it. Too many people put off something that brings them joy just because they haven't thought about it, don't have it on their schedule, didn't know it was coming, or are too rigid to depart from their routine. I got to thinking one day about all those people on the Titanic who passed up dessert at dinner that fateful night in an effort to cut back. From then on, I've tried to be a little more flexible. How many women out there will eat at home because their husbands didn't suggest going out to dinner until after something had been thawed? Does the word refrigeration mean nothing to you? How often have your adult kids dropped in to talk and sat in silence while their parents watched Jeopardy on television? I cannot count the times I called my sister and said, "How about going to lunch in a half an hour?" She would seize up and stammer, "I can't. I have clothes on the line. I need to wash my hair. I wish I had known yesterday. I had a late breakfast. It looks like rain. And my personal favorite, it's Monday." She died a few years ago. We never did have lunch together. We live in a sparse diet of promises we make to ourselves when all the conditions are perfect. We'll go back and visit the grandparents when we get Stevie toilet trained. We'll entertain when we replace the living room carpet. We'll go on a second honeymoon when we get 2 more kids out of college. Life has a way of accelerating as we get older. The days get shorter, and the list of promises to ourselves gets longer. One morning we awaken, and all we have to show for our lives is a litany of I'm going to. I plan on. And someday, when things are settled down a bit. When anyone calls my seize the moment friend, she is open to adventure and available for trips. She keeps an open mind on new ideas. Her enthusiasm for life is contagious. You talk with her for 5 minutes and you're ready to trade your bad feet for a pair of rollerblades. My lips have not touched ice cream in 10 years. I love ice cream. It's just that I might as well apply it directly to my hips with a spatula and eliminate the digestive process. The other day I stopped the car and bought a triple-decker. If my car had hit an iceberg on the way home, I would have died happy. Now, go on and have a nice day. Do something you want to, not something on your should-do list. If you were going to die soon and had only one phone call you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting?